Hi everyone, my name's Patricia Worby and I run a company called Alchemy Therapies. I'm a therapist, but today I'm in the role of host and I'm welcoming all of you from the Southampton Positive Living Group and anyone else who's tuning in today to watch a very special presentation by my new friend and colleague, Dr. Rainer Viehweger, who is going to talk to us about psychosomatic energetics. Psychosomatic energetics, or PSE. Now, as I understand it, this is something he's been working on for a while now, and he's an absolute expert in this field. And I'm so excited because this is right up my street. I'm very interested in the energetic nature of the human being. So Dr. Rainer Viehweger is an MD. He was an orthopedic specialist since 1992 actually, but he's no longer doing that. He's running a private clinic from 2003 in the UK as it is now. He uses CAM methods for pain and stress relief. So it's very good to hear that there are alternatives out there for pain. He's been using PSE since 2004 and is a certified energy practitioner. So if you want to contact Dr. Rainer Viehweger, you can contact him on the website given there, TYBMAS-HEALTH.co.uk, and the phone number, which I'm sure he'll repeat at the end. Just a little point, he's not registered in the UK as a medical doctor, although obviously that's his background. Okay, yeah. Well, without further ado, I'd like to let him begin. So take it away.
Yeah, hello Patricia, it's really nice to be with you today and to speak to all the people of the Positive Living Group, which we unfortunately cannot meet due to the circumstances in person today. But I'm really honored to have that talk online. And I think this is something which will be all new to you because I am the only psychosomatic energetics practitioner in the whole UK still, because it was taught in Germany. It has been taught for about 20 years. It has been taught in Austria and Switzerland, but also in Canada and the US, but not in the UK yet. So since I'm here now, I can use it, and UK clients can benefit from it as well. Thank you for the introduction. I don't want to add anything to it now because we don't have enough time. But what I would like to do is tell you that I really love what I call the Interscalar model of life. I really believe, and I'm sure that it's the case, that human beings are multidimensional beings. And this is simply related to a scale in the universe which goes from the dense things like matter to the very subtle things like information structures, which we even can't measure. And there is a scale that is called the global scale, and that was discovered by my friend Hartmut Müller in the 80s. And he now developed this interscalar worldview from it because it covers everything from cosmology to even biology and technology. 10 years ago, I wrote a book about it, Understanding the Universe Through Global Scaling. You can still get it on Amazon, and if you want to, it might be interesting for you to read. So life is an interscalar phenomenon. So life does not only exist at one level of the same scale. And this is also how I see medicine. So we have the level of matter of our body, of the physical body. And this is also on a scale. And then we have biochemistry, which is on another part of the scale. And we have the energetic parts, electromagnetic phenomena, which is even another part on the scale. And then we have the mind, the information, which is even further up on the scale. But they're all interconnected. And with different therapies, we tap into the different levels of the scale. So all kinds of surgeries and medication go to the physical and chemical level. Then psychology goes more to the mind level, and homeopathy even is something that relates to information structures. So everything in the universe communicates, cooperates. This is also the new paradigm which we have to apply in our societies in the future. And let's now go to the psychosomatic energetics, which is part of that whole multidimensional structure called life or human being. So the first question would be, why would we use psychosomatic energetics? First of all, if we are healthy and feel good, we can use it for personal development. We will later talk about why this is happening. On the other hand, if we feel that we have low energy levels, and specialists don't find a cause, we might suffer from anxiety, and any chronic condition with no treatment has help with. And we would like to probably add something to regular therapies. Or we might have children who always catch the flu or something, who are behaving anxiously or have any other problems at school. Even autism may be a part of it. And the psychosomatic energetics can be used really as an alternative or complement to scientifically grounded methods. I see it very often as a baseline therapy, because removing the emotional conflicts makes all other things work better. In many cases, it even works on itself without any other supporting therapies. So we can use it for physical problems, such like food intolerances, asthma, IBS, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, or for all kinds of mental issues, just like fatigue, burnout, sleep issues, depression and anxiety, or certain behavior disorders, bedwetting in children, ADHD, and many things more. I used it the first time for reducing tension in the myofascial system of people, because we all know that the trapezius muscle is just getting spasmic when we're always in fear, and that would create pain, headaches, and cervical spine problems over time. And this is how I met it first, interestingly, with a friend of mine who's a physicist and veterinarian. And he said he could see the problems in the aura field of the people. And I said, just tell me, I can't see it. How can I find out about those emotional conflicts in that aura field? And he said, look at the psychosomatic energetics method. Yeah, and the physical body is called the soma. And that's part of the PSE. That's our inherited constitution, nutrition, fitness, bacteria in the gut or bacteria from outside, injuries. And then we have the psyche, which is mind and soul, with all our moods, opinions, beliefs, and previous experiences. And then there's the subtle energy, the energetics, the life force that we can't really measure using physical methods. It's just like chi, prana, ether, and the harmony which is related to that. And what the psychosomatic energetics does, it is able to test those subtle energies of the body. It is seen, the subtle energy is seen as the harmonic informational structure of the body. Which we also might call the life energy. And it's found everywhere in nature and the whole universe. And I think that's because we are not able to measure it, because it is an informational massless structure. And it must be in the right order for all kinds of energy to flow in a harmonious way. And harmony just means interconnectedness. So for us to experience physical well-being and emotional equilibrium, it has to be able to freely flow through the human body. And there's very important functions of the subtle energy as well. It's identical with our sense of how a life will feel, with our state of health and our being with ourselves. And it controls, among others, but this is very important, it controls the autonomous nervous system balance and function. And it's also important for the metabolism to run in a harmonic way. And at the end, it's equal to the regenerative forces. And this is what we need for self-healing. An important part of the subtle energy in general is what is called the aura field. You might have heard of it. It permeates the body and extends beyond it. And it has certain layers. So the physical layer is the one that is closest to the physical body, then followed by the emotional layer, the mental layer, and the causal layer. And some people can see it or experience it. It's hard to measure. You can do Kirlian photography or dowse for it or do other things, but it depends on who is doing that examination, and you would probably not get everything of it. But the Reba test device, which we use in psychosomatic energetics, gives you quite stable results. So if I would test your energy and another good therapist would test your energy, we both should find the same things. And this is in biological energetic terms, that's a good result if two people can find the same things. So when we do the energy test in psychosomatic energetics, because that's the first thing, we want to determine how much energy the person has to self-heal. So the physical level is related to vitality, to our sense of and resilient. And it is also in communication with the delta waves of our brain waves. The emotional part is related to our mood, to feelings, concentration, and the immune system, and that's related to the theta waves in our EEG. Followed by the mental layer, that's the everyday awareness, self-awareness, and in the brain, that's the alpha state. And then we have the causal layer, that's that's the most external one, that is related to the deepest unconscious, to intuition, and even to archetypes. And this is related to beta waves. We determine the energy content in the aura field in those 4 layers. And the maximum is 100% for each. And when we have determined that, we look for energetic blockages. And very important blockages are, for example, geopathic stress or artificial EMFs that can cause blockages. But the most important ones are the emotional blockages, which are always related to the related chakra. So we have a chakra blockage, which we will test for, and we have a related emotional blockage, which we will also test for, and we use specific test remedies to find out. Another thing that we can look at is organ weaknesses as well, and then we can test for all kinds of therapies and how effective they can be. So when we go back in the PSE, emotional conflicts are the most important energy blockages, as I said before. And how do they occur? There's a shock-like emotional trauma. And this is so dangerous for us that we suppress it in the subconscious. We don't want to know about it, otherwise we would probably not survive that situation. So the pain is really big and the threat is so big that we suppress it into the subconscious. This is important. And then those traumata as emotional conflicts, they live in the subconscious, and they may be there for long, long times until they become activated by a certain environmental trigger. That may be a life situation that is very similar to the initial shock event, which may activate this pattern in the field, and then they start to grow, and by growing they drain life energy from us. And on the long run, those emotional conflicts, once activated, affect the immune system, the nervous system, and the hormone system, and that will make us sick over time. The conflict manipulates the subconscious and steals vital and emotional life energy from us. Here you see an image of the physical body surrounded with the aura field, and then you see something that we call the umbilical cord, and this is where the conflict is an energetic being that comprises same layers as our aura field as well. So the conflict has a vital layer, an emotional layer, a mental layer, and a causal layer. And it is connected through an umbilical cord-like structure, field structure, that is connected always to a certain chakra. So an rage or anger conflict, we will always find in the solar plexus or in the third chakra. We will never find it in the root chakra. The root chakra is related with other things. So what we need to do is that the conflict is stored in a kind of an energetic bubble outside our subtle aura field. And only when it's activated, it grows, and then it soaks energy from us. And this is also where people to see the aura field in colors or structures are able to see that conflict as well, like shamans do. Rainer Barnes, Dr. Rainer Barnes is the inventor of the psychosomatic energetics. And he was working with bioresonance for very long times. He had done electroacupuncture, and he was working with Bach remedies, and he was always looking into the emotional problems of people. And at the end, he found out that certain things work for a while, and then things grow back. And he could identify that a conflict, like, for example, the rage conflict, is made out of anger. It's made out of frustration, and one or two other things, and you have to treat them all together to really resolve the problem. That was his finding. And this is the reason why he could only identify 28 of such fundamental emotional conflicts which deplete the energy in our field. We may have thousands of other conflicts, but it may be that they would not deplete our energy that much. And we can treat those conflict remedies we talk about later with the PSA. What you see here is the REBA test device. REBA means Rainer Barnes, from its inventor. It was developed by a physicist in Germany, and it's basically a noise generator that creates a noise which we cannot hear because it's in a 30-40 kilohertz range. And this resonates with our nervous system, probably our brain waves. And the noise would stress the nervous system. And as a result of that stress, we do an arm length test, which is a kind of kinesiology. But you could also use a biotensor, but that arm length test is really nice to do because clients often feel the relaxation when you find the right thing. So we can determine the energy levels in a percentage, and the best level is 100%, which we want to achieve on the vital, emotional, and mental level. There is an average of 50% in the intuitive level, so not every one of us is an angel. There are too many spiritual blockages that put the causal level on average 50%. And it's also in our world we live in not always beneficial to be highly sensitive, because you can be aware of all the good things, but also all the bad things, which is not always good. After we had tested the energy levels, where we can talk about that on a vital level, for example, when the energy is above 80%, people are quite energetic. When it goes down below 40%, we can speak of exhaustion or even fatigue. And for the emotional level, that's about our mood. And when this goes down, we may become depressive or even immune depleted. And the mental level, when we find that very low, that could be even a sign for a really psychotic problem which we might have. After we know the energy levels, we use the device to test our chakra remedies. They are called Chavita 1 to 7. And we put the Chavita remedy into the field and see if there's any reaction in the arm length test. And this is the way how we determine the blockage of a certain chakra. And then we use the related emotional remedies. They are called Mvita. And for example, for chakra 2, there is Mvita 5, 6, and 7. And only those 3 will be tested, so that the whole testing procedure is not too long. We don't have to go through all the 28. And then we have determined which emotional conflict is active. And then we use another related specific test remedy with a different substance that is used to determine the energetic size of the conflict. And this gives us some information about how long it would need treatment and also when it was created. So there are some inherited conflicts already, which we might have taken over from mom and dad, or even grandfather or grandmom. And there are smaller ones which may be later, and bigger ones which may happen in childhood. But the most important thing is that we know how long treatment is required using the homeopathic remedies. Besides the Chavita and Mvita remedies, there are also some acute remedies, such like Anxiovita, which can be used when it comes up in a test for general anxiety symptoms to which there is no specific reason, causing just like stomach aches or diarrhea or headaches and whatever symptom. And Neurovita, Simvita, Paravita, they also have an effect on the autonomous nervous system functions. Geovita is used for geopathic stress, when people sleep on geopathic areas, and before they can put their bed into a different position, they could use the Geovita and see how much better they feel. So when we treat a conflict, let's say for 2 or 3 months, because this is the time we need to treat one conflict, so it seems that the soul and the mind, they need some time to make adjustments and for us to change our behaviors and belief systems until it is really gone. And at PSE, Reimer, they have tried lots of other approaches to make that time shorter, but it always needed that amount of time. So what we do is we use 2 times 12 drops of the Chavita and the related Amvita remedy per day for even 2, 3, or 4 months, depending on the size of the conflict. For every conflict, there's also an affirmation, because we have to rewrite the content for our belief system, which we use in addition to the homeopathic remedies. And then we can use the Reba test for testing of weaker organs, and we can also see the effects in terms of energy of all kinds of supplements and medication we would do. So this is a really nice tool in the hands of the therapist to find out what's really good for the client. And it's easy and quick. What are the goals and benefits of PSE? So once we resolve the energy blockages and self-healing will work better, there will be a noticeable raise of energy levels. There is a development of personal potential as well, because as we see later when I talk about the central conflict, how things may change. There will be an improvement of physical symptoms, and even sometimes healing may happen. So there is a huge activation of self-healing capabilities. And we would, in general, balance our body, mind, and soul. It's good for children. Many methods claim that they treat the root causes, but and treating the root cause is always treating the subtle energy fields or the informational fields, because they are the highest on the scale. So the psychosomatic energetics is I think one of the most important things we can do in treating the cause and make many other things work better, or just that we don't need them anymore. They are abroad in Europe and also in the US. Most of the practitioners are certified practitioners, which means that they have gone through a training and they had their examens at the end. And there's more than 20 years of experience with this method already. And another huge benefit is that the energy levels, they are measurable by different therapists, and they are also comparable. So another therapist should find the same thing that I would find when I look at the emotional conflicts. Let's go now to something else which is related to psychosomatic energetics, and there is something that is called the central conflict, a central emotional conflict. And this is a very important thing, because it very often relates to the most serious disease that we can develop, the most serious chronic disease. And this often gives also an answer to why is my kidney sick, or why do I have heart attacks all the time, or why is my liver always affected? And this is, of course, related to the chakras and to the content of the emotional conflicts. And with the central conflicts is especially important, because it relates to personality and temperament types. There are 4 that were discovered in the ancient Greek times, and I think they are still valid and useful today, even if psychology has now discovered many, many more things. But I think the 4 that we can see here are still the same: the melancholic type, the sanguine type, the choleric type, and the phlegmatic type, those 4. And I put them together in that kind of cube here, because we all have a melancholic part, we all have a sanguine part, we all have a choleric part, and we all have a phlegmatic part. And the more balanced they are, for example, 25% each, the more balanced is our personality and the wiser we can be. But we all have that central conflict, which means that one of the four is dominating a little bit. And this makes us thinking in a certain way. So the melancholic type was also determined to react to stress using a testosterone pathway in the neurotransmitter and hormone system in response to stress. And that was discovered by a lady in the US, Helen Fisher. You can search for TED Talks she gives on how you would find your optimal mate and what happens in the brain when we fall in love. So when you search for Helen Fisher TED Talk, you will find her. And this is very interesting because the melancholic type, for example, has the central conflict in chakra 1 and 7 and reacts to and uses testosterone in a stress response. The sanguine type has the central conflict in chakra 2 and 6, and that's the dopamine and norepinephrine type. The choleric has the central conflict in chakra 3, and this one is using estrogen and oxytocin as the major stress response. And the phlegmatic type, that is chakra 5, and is using serotonin for stress response. But why is that important? The central conflict is our biggest fear of death. So it seems, and this is the theory in psychosomatic energetics, that in a past life, we were killed by something, and for the next life, we develop an avoiding strategy, and we follow a certain pathway. The brain area responsible for that is the diencephalon, which is related to existential orientation and sensitivity in general. And this is the area where we determine in the brain what we think is normal for us. And when we look at the melancholic, the biggest fear of death for the melancholic is the one of non-existence. So just to be killed if something is not working out well. The choleric has the biggest fear of being left alone. The sanguine doesn't want to make final decisions, and that may be related to something that there were tortures in a past life because they were making a decision. So they just, I don't want to make a decision anymore. And the phlegmatic has simply the fear of change. And so they are all different. And I would like to give you a few of their talents and weaknesses of the types, because that's important for when we live together in relationships, when we have our family, when we have friends and colleagues, and it's also important for our profession, who we could be in life. And it's always good when we know about our talents and weaknesses, and it's also a good prevention of maybe a chronic disease when we are more balanced and become wiser. So the melancholic type, the so-called testosterone type, and Helen Fisher calls him the director type, that's a person who is very analytical, logical, with spatial skills. That also relates to music. There's always an intent on achievement. The intelligence is based on good strategic qualities. The person is very direct and emotionally contained. And what kind of profession would be good for those people? So Beethoven may have been one of those people in music, but we could think of leaders in governments, just like Maggie Thatcher may have been one of those. It's a male type basically, but she had quite a few properties of a male person as well. On the other hand, pilots or people who take responsibility, all kinds of leaders, are often of a melancholic type. And what are the weaknesses? They are often uncompromising and impatient, demanding, and the biggest weakness is probably the lack of empathy. And that's because they are always busy with working out survival strategies because they have that fear of existence. So they're always ahead with their thoughts. They're very logical. They not only know the second step, they're thinking on the fourth step. So they have not only plan B, they have plan C and D. And so they don't have the time and the ability to see how the person just they are related to feels. So they simply don't see it, and sometimes it may come up quite arrogant. The same is related, only another word for the same thing, it's called mind blindness. And they're often also come as kind of aloof with that. The related female part is the choleric type, and probably the melancholic and the choleric type are the ancient male and female types when mankind was there. So this is the estrogen and oxytocin type, and Helen Fisher calls them the negotiators. So these are people who are very caring, nurturing. They're pro-social and they seek harmony. So it's ancient mother. So very intuitive as well. They trust, they are empathic. But they're also holistic, synthesizing, contextual, have good language skills because they have to talk to everyone. And what are the best profession for those? It's just people who help, just like carers, nurses, and many others. The weaknesses, they are sometimes hypersensitive, so they swallow down their anger, that's the solar plexus, and they carry those rage conflicts, and they are very, very polite to the outside, they're very nice, but there is fire inside and they might explode. And this also makes them unforgiving. So we all may know mothers or wives who say, okay, I always remember what you did to me, just like an elephant, remembering every kind of thing that happened to him. And this may also make them sometimes ruminating. Yeah, they also may be a little gullible and effusive from time to time, and maybe one or the other of you will recognize him or herself or members of the family. The sanguine type, so that's the dopamine and norepinephrine type, so these are the explorers, which are very curious, they're sensation-seeking, very extroverted, the best actors on stage. They're energetic, they're independent, optimistic, impulsive, open-minded, and they're the revolutionaries. They're always good for an adventure, and they don't care about yesterday, and they love their freedom, and they have the tactical intelligence related to the strategical intelligence of the melancholic. So what would be the best profession for these group of people? There might be salespeople even, or actors, lawyers, because often the court is the stage for a lawyer where they can give their speeches. Weaknesses, they're susceptible to boredom. They're sometimes reckless, unreflective, manic, insincere, unpredictable, and they often have difficulties in managing their finances really well. The fourth person is the phlegmatic type, the serotonin type, and this is the builder, and they have, according to Helen Fisher, they have that logistical intelligence. They like to follow routines, and they like the importance of belonging to something. They're very precise and detail-oriented, controlled, sometimes stoic. They observe social norms. They are loyal, and they also demand loyalty from their friends and colleagues. So there are those who preserve the values. And this is probably the ideal kind of bookkeeper or accountant or something, so that's very structured. And the weakness of the phlegmatic type is that fear of change. So this is a very rigid person and lacks very often joy. So they have to learn something, and this is what I would like to talk about in a minute. First, we go through the weaknesses. So they're a little bit rigid, moralistic, controlling, sometimes stubborn, as I said before. And now we would like to come, and this is already the end of this short talk, that all those people, the four personality types, they have their best mates, their friends and partners, and they also have someone who they really can't work with or cannot live in a relationship. And the divorce statistics, they tell us that only 50% of people are in a situation that they can live together for a longer time. So the melancholic, and with a melancholic, of course, and but the best partner in a family is the choleric partner, because they can support each other. The melancholic has the lack of empathy, of which the choleric has too much, so they can learn from each other. The melancholic likes to be on his own, so he loves to be alone and think through things, and the choleric needs to learn that, so that fear of being left alone, that is something that they can learn from the melancholic. So they would really support each other. It's not always very smooth, but that's how things work. And the other partnership, good partnership between male and female, is the sanguine and the phlegmatic, because the sanguine is so happy and optimistic all the time, and this is what the phlegmatic is lacking, and the sanguine is just lacking structure, which the sanguine can learn from the phlegmatic, who is often overstructured. And this is how things can really work out well together. And this could also be important for raising children. So we can support their weaknesses, their talents, and the sanguine child needs structure. And the phlegmatic child, that should go out and be more extroverted and sing and dance and play an instrument to express their feelings. And this is how the psychosomatic energetics can also be used in finding the best friends and partners to work with or to live with, and also to look what may be my talents, what should be my, or what could be my profession in the future. What is that, what I'm really good at? Yeah, yeah, I've come to an end. This is my last slide. And I hope Patricia is still there. I didn't hear anything.
Yep, I'm here.
And yeah, I don't know how much time we used.
I think we've got about 15 minutes. So
Only.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, unfortunately, but fascinating talk. That was absolutely spot on with the observations I've made with people as well.
uh-huh.
If I may ask a couple of questions, when you're testing people, do
Yeah.
you sort of take into account these personality styles, or does that come in later once you've kind of found out what their deficits are in the chakras?
Yeah. Normally, when I test a person the first time, I look for the energy levels and I look for the very first conflict that is activated.
Yeah.
And this is the one that we can treat at this time. So I wouldn't look for the central conflict.
No.
Sometimes when there is a person with a serious disease, it may be that the central conflict is even active. And then it has a very, very big size. And then there is a suspicion that this could be the central conflict. So then I would use some other little remedies which I add to it to see, is that really the central conflict or not? So it very rarely it happens that I see a central conflict in the first time. And then we have to talk about it, because those people have to make the biggest changes in their life to get better.
Yeah, sure. Well, certainly the aspect that you touched on with the shock of emotional conflict, I deal with this a lot. I have slightly different methods of changing the autonomic response, but it's definitely present. It's downloaded in the body from the field, if you like, and it resonates, doesn't it? It has a very disturbing resonance, which, as you said, drains the life force from that person. It drains their vitality, and so it is very important. Any of you watching, if you do have, you're aware of issues, you may not know what it is, but you may be aware of the effects in your body, that perhaps your relationships don't work out well, or you struggle to achieve in an area that you really want to be pursuing, or you simply don't know what it is.
And when we realize that we always make the same mistakes, or that we always make the same people who make use of us, then we might look at something, because we attract these situations.
Yes, we do. We repeat and repeat and repeat because we have stuck energy.
It's not only the stuck energy, but the conflict which is active is like a parasite. Like it behaves like an energetic parasite, and it drives us into those situations where it can even get more energy out of us.
Right. So it continues to drive itself like a parasite would. It wants the energy to survive, I guess. Yeah, very apt description given what's going on right now. So I had another question, which was how does this relate to other forms of autonomic testing, like kinesiology, like I think there is one called autonomic response testing, ART, you may have heard of, because they all seem to have great similarities, but this is specific because of the conflict, the idea of this conflict.
Yes, we all know that every of the 7 main chakras, they have an innovation from the autonomous nervous system. So for the root chakra, for example, it's the one that is called the plexus sacralis, and that innovates the pelvis organs, for example, our legs. And for the second chakra, it's the plexus lumbalis, and the parts of the large intestine are related to that one, or the sigmoid, or the lower lumbar spine, and it may be related to lower back pain a lot. So this is how it often makes sense. And when we balance these areas, the whole nervous system, or as such, as a whole system, is more balanced then.
Yeah, because
yeah.
yeah.
We are not looking so much as we do in heart rate variability. So is there what is the function of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic? So we really look for weaknesses that may be related in a physical terms to inflammation, or even blockage of innovation.
Yeah.
And we all know that, for example, in cancer patients, the autonomous innovation is altered.
And the coherence is also altered. The coherence
of
of
course.
biophotonic output, in other words, the light from the body.
That's related to it, but simply thinking in terms of physiology, not so much in energy and coherence. Even that is altered from a biological and even medical point of view. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess what you're saying, in essence, is that energy lies above all of those changes. So the change in the surrounding field is what preempts all those subsequent changes in chemistry and the physical body.
They work together, and very often we wonder why changing diet and changing habits, or we do sports and we simply don't lose weight. So why is that? And then we have to look back into those energetic changes which we might need to make.
Yeah, and of course you touched on it, but some of the conflicts might be inherited, so they may not even be in your lifetime. They may be in your parents' lifetime or your grandparents. This has been proven. So it's not always possible to know, is it, what it is that's blocking you, and therefore willpower and the idea that you should just try harder is a problem, because it won't necessarily cure the issue. So I just think these approaches are, as you said, they get close to the source of the problem, if you like. They are sort of root cause medicine, really, which is a wonderful thing. And it's going to transform medicine, in my view, from being a very symptom suppression-driven system where you've got a backache, we'll give you painkillers.
Right. I think we have great achievements in medicine for acute problems.
In acute medicine.
Yeah, we can save lives with intensive care and surgery.
Brilliant.
But on the long run, when it comes to chronic disease and preventing chronic disease, this is very quite poor.
Yes, we're not really coping with the numbers of people, and the people are living longer, but in chronic pain and dysfunction, and on multiple drugs, and that's part of the issue, I think. But so I'm sure lots of people have got questions, and they're probably busy now making notes about the different personality styles and who they need to attract into their lives. And I could certainly resonate with a couple of those. I think I'm probably a choleric. That's me, I think. Definitely, and I've had issues with high estrogen as well, so that makes sense. So it was really fascinating.
I find that so interesting that this energetic approach is supported by these kinds of biochemical or even nervous system related things, even if those pathways are not quite clear how they really work.
No.
But this is what people could find in biochemistry, and that's so interesting.
Yeah, well, this is where the Western and Eastern philosophies, if you like, are beginning to merge. Mind and matter and body and soul. We are beginning to see the crosstalk between those two things, and it's just a wonderful moment, I think, in our lives, in the discovery of the collaboration approach, where you can actually see the science and you can actually see the more holistic understanding, and you can bring them together. And why this is so powerful, I think, because you've been talking both languages to different
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And that's your strength, I think, and I hope it's mine as well, because I come from both ends of that spectrum. I've trained conventionally, but I've also done, I am doing holistic work now. So yeah, fantastic. Well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up shortly. And obviously, as you're watching this, we're going to be premiering it, and we're going to invite questions to be typed in as well, so which we can respond to as people ask them. So I think we'll wrap up this formal component now, and then we'll leave 5 or 10 minutes for further questions from the audience, if that's okay with you.
That's okay. I'm happy with that. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you in a moment.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.